so what that means is 4 over 2, it's the same thing as 4 divided by 2, right? We just wrote it differently. So a complex fraction is a fraction within a fraction. Fraction within a fraction. So someone said earlier, like number 1, your first problem here, 3/14 divided by 24 over 7. Someone said, well, can't you just put it in your calculator? Well, yes, you could if you wanted to, but we're going to go through the actual steps to do this because you need to know how to do it when you have a variable. And most of these complex fractions will have a variable. So what I want you to do first is I want you to bold that division line. You can either use a different color pen or just use your pencil. Just make sure it's bolded. I'm going to clean mine up a little bit. Alright, and I want you guys to think about your first fraction and then your second fraction. The first thing I want to do for this problem is I want to rewrite it. Okay, if I rewrite this problem, we have 3 over 14 divided by 24 over 7. All I did so far was just rewrite what I already had. Who remembers what we do when we have to divide fractions? Nope, it is, you're thinking about something different. You're thinking about unlike denominators with our LCD. Think about those 3 letters, KCF. What do those stand for? Keep,
change, flip.
Yeah, keep, change, and flip. So, I always like to write it on top of whatever I'm doing, just so I don't forget. Alright, so keep, change, flip tells me exactly what I need to do. My first fraction, I am going to keep the same, 3 over 14. My sign needs to change. What's the opposite of division?
Multiplication.
Multiplication, good. And then I have 24 over 7 that I need to flip. So now what's on top? That's my numerator. 7 and my denominator is 24. Let's multiply straight across because now I can solve this problem. What's 3 times 20? 3 times 7?
21.
21. And what is 14 times 24?
336.
336. Jeffrey, while you have your calculator in your hand, let's do 21 divided by 336 and simplify your fraction with math, enter. What do you get?
116.
So your answer for this problem is 1 over 16. Did that make sense what we just did? We rewrote it, and then I changed it so I could solve it, and then I just multiplied straight across. Any questions on the first one? All right, look at the second one. I'm going to bold my division line right here. So my first fraction is 5 divided by x minus 2. My second fraction is 25 divided by x minus 2, x minus 1. Okay, now that we don't have just all numbers, now that we have some variables and some factors, what I'm going to check for with each fraction is my numerator simplified and is my denominator factored out, okay? So look at the first fraction, just this one. 5 over x minus 2. Is the numerator simplified? Well, yeah, it's just a 5. I can't do anything else with that. And is the bottom in factored form? X minus 2 is in factored form, so yes. You can write it over if you'd like, but you don't have to. I just like to rewrite it. For my second fraction on the bottom, there's nothing to simplify on top, so 25 stays. And my denominator is already factored, so we're good there too. So I can go ahead and rewrite. So we have 5 divided by x minus 2, which is divided by 25 over x minus 2, x minus 1. Once I rewrite it, I know that I can't solve this as a division problem. The way that I solve a division problem is by multiplying by the reciprocal. So I need to keep, change, flip. So my first fraction is going to be 5 divided by x minus 2 times, and then I'm going to flip. So x minus 2 goes on top, x minus 1 is on top, and then 25 is on the bottom. Just from looking at this, can I cross anything out? What? The x minus 2 can go. So I'm left with 5 times x minus 1 divided by 25. Is this my final answer, or can I simplify something else? Can we simplify 5 over 25?
Yeah.
Let's simplify that. What do you get?
Okay.
You get 1/5. You can keep your 1 on top if you'd like, but you don't have to. This is my final answer. Make sure you always box your answer or circle it, because there's just so much going on with complex fractions that it's just easier for you to find your answer and for me to find your answer. All right, that was the second problem. Let's take a look at the third problem. This is where it gets a little bit more intense. Makes you think a little bit more. I bolded my division sign, so I know I have my top fraction and my bottom fraction. Just looking at this top fraction here, is my numerator simplified as far as it can go? No, it is not, so let's go ahead and do that. X squared minus 4. At this point, we have to know how to recognize dose. This is a dose problem. How do I write this out into factors?
X plus 2,
Yep,
x minus 2.
good. X plus 2, x minus 2. All right, let's take a look at the top denominator. X squared minus 2x plus 1. Is that factored down? No, it is not. So off to the side, you have plenty of room. Let's do our t-chart. I need two numbers that multiply and give me 1 and adds to give me -2. What are my factors?
1 times 1.
1 times 1, but we need some negatives here. Both are negatives. Good. Okay, so instead of writing x squared minus 2x plus 1, I'm going to write x minus 1, x minus 1, because it needs to be factored down. My second fraction down here is already factored down, right? So we don't have to do anything to that. It's just x plus 2 on top, x minus 1 on the bottom. I can't simplify that any further. Do you guys see how I just simplified my top fraction and my bottom fraction? Now I have to solve it, okay? This is the part where I show you that if you want to skip the step of rewriting, then you can. I've been rewriting to just write it differently, and then I keep change flip, right? If you want to go ahead and skip to the keep change flip part, I'm fine with that, but just make sure you're doing it right. Which means you keep this first fraction the same, your number 1. You would change your sign to multiplication, and you would flip this blue fraction there. Okay, for the sake of the notes, I'm still going to rewrite it. But you are not required to do this step if you don't want to. However, if you think that you see it better by rewriting, well then do it that way. And don't skip the step. Minus. So, if you chose to just skip the rewriting part, you would have x plus 2 times x minus 2 divided by x minus 1 times x minus 1. My sign changes to become multiplication, and then I flip my second fraction. Does that make sense? Okay. Eric, can I cancel anything out here?
X plus 2.
Okay, x plus 2 can go. What else?
X plus 1.
Good. Be careful with crossing out your x minus 1. You can only do one at a time from top to bottom. You cannot cross out both of these x minus 1s. Okay? You can only do one from top to bottom. So what's left on top is I have x minus 2. And what's left on the bottom is x minus 1. And that is my answer. Isaac, are you staying with me? Okay, I don't want you to get too far behind. All right. The first one on the back page, I had a top fraction and I had a bottom fraction. Once again, I could put this in my calculator, but you guys need to know how to do it with only numbers before we add in our variables. 1/4 plus 1/3. Can I just add that straight across? No. Why? They don't have the same denominators. Good. That's what we just quizzed on. I'm going to highlight what we're talking about. Right? So, I need to make sure that I can get common denominators. This is my LCD. Right? So, what we did earlier was that we listed out the multiples, right? And then we just found the least common one. Some people can do it in their heads. If you can't, it's fine. Let's write it out. For the first denominator, I have 4. So let's list some numbers. 4, 8, 12, and 16. Eric already said 12. Does that mean that you know that's our LCD?
Yeah.
Good. If you want to do it for 3, let's see, we have 3, 6, 9, 12. You guys do not have to do this on this side, okay? If you can see that it's one that your LCD is 12, then write 12. Completely fine with that. So now, my denominator is 12. My old denominator that I started with was 4. My new one is 12. What did I multiply to get there?
For the 1/4 times both by 3.
The bottom by 3 and the top by 3. So 3 times 1 gives me what? 3 is in my numerator. Write this down, Isaac. Alright, then I have my old denominator is 3 and I'm trying to get to 12. I'm going to multiply the bottom and the top by what? 4. So on top I have 1 times 4, which is positive 4. What's 3 plus 4?
7.
So my answer is 7/12. Okay? Alright, on your second fraction on the bottom, let's put that 1 over 1. This one should be pretty easy to see. What's my LCD going to be? Between 1 and 8. It's going to be 8, right? My LCD is 8. Alright, remember I like to change my minus. If I'm subtracting two fractions, I change it to a minus. Oh my goodness. I change it to a plus, and then I take the opposite side, which is a negative. Okay? So, if I start with 1 and I must get to 8, I'm going to multiply what?
8.
8 to the bottom and the top. So 8 times 1
8.
is 8. My second fraction, my old denominator was 8, my new is 8. Did anything change? No. So should anything change to the top? No. So that stays minus 1. 8 minus 1 gives me 7 over 8. If you want to go ahead and get into your keep, change, flip, go for it. I'm going to rewrite the problem now that I have simplified everything. So we have 7/12 divided by 7/8. That's the part you don't have to write. All right, my keep, change, flip will be what? What's my first fraction?
7 over 12.
And then what? What's my sign?
Times
And what's my second
8
fraction?
over 7.
Good. Keep, change, flip. So now I can just work straight across. So it's 8 times 7. And 12 times 7. Isaac, in your calculator, I want you to reduce 56 over 84. What do you get? That's good. Please be aware that even if you use your calculator for the beginning part to simplify it, you still have to know how to do keep, change, flip. And that doesn't actually give you your final answer, it just kind of helps you along the way. Let's have the second problem or the third problem. Oh, that was the first problem?
Yeah, that was the first problem.
On the back page. So we have what, 3 more?
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4.
Without this one, it'll be 3 more.
Okay. Alright. 20 minutes. I'm going to bold my division line, and I'm going to separate my first fraction from my second fraction. If you look at your top fraction, your numerator and your denominator, there's nothing more that we can do, okay? I have a 2 in my numerator, that just stays there. I have a factor of x plus 2. I can't do anything else with that, so it stays. I don't have to factor anything down. Now in my second fraction, we have 1 over x plus 2 plus 2 divided by x. You have to get the same denominator because we're adding 2 fractions. So let's look at our LCD and what it could be. Okay, my first fraction, the denominator is x plus 2. My second fraction, the denominator is x. Can you combine those 2 x's? No. Okay, I know it looks tricky, but you cannot combine those 2 x's because the first x is attached to a plus sign, so that is already in a group by itself. So my LCD is going to be x times x plus 2. That is my LCD. Let's write that down. All right, let's take a look at the second fraction. If you look at the first one, I already have x plus 2 in my old denominator. What am I missing from my new denominator? Just the x, so we all see that. Barry, can see it? Isaac? Jenny? All right, so I'm going to multiply by what I'm missing to the bottom and the top. So I want it to match my new denominator. 1 times x will give me just 1x. You don't have to write the 1 if you don't want to. Alright, look at 2 divided by x. I have x from my old denominator. What am I missing from the new one? Not just the 2, the x plus 2. So I'm going to multiply times x plus 2. Okay? So if I distribute that, I'm left with 2x plus 4. I can simplify that numerator more. What's 1x plus 2x? So we have 3x plus 4 divided by x times x plus 2. Are you guys rewriting or are you skipping right to the keep, change, flip?
Rewriting.
Are you? Okay. So if we rewrite this, I'm left with my first fraction, which is 2 divided by x plus 2, divided by 3x plus 4 over x times x plus 2. All I did so far was rewrite it after I simplified my top and my bottom fraction. Now to solve it, I need to keep, change, flip. So I keep, change, and flip. I keep my first fraction the same. 2 over x plus 2. I change my sign to multiplication. And then I flip my second fraction. So that is x times x plus 2. And on the bottom we have 3x plus 4. Janie, what can I cancel out here? Your x plus 2 can go. That is the only thing that can go. You cannot cross out this x that's being multiplied and the x that's in that group, right? So my final answer is 2x's on top, and on the bottom we have 3x plus 4. Huh?
The next one is like a squared divided by.
Yeah. All good on this one? Yes? Alright, so this is the third one, right? Alright, there's my division sign. I have my first fraction and I have my second fraction. There's nothing else to do to this a squared. It's just, it is what it is. It just stays there for now. We'll deal with that in a second. Now my second problem, I need an LCD for that. So let's go to the side. I have my first denominator is 5. My second denominator is a. So I'm basically going to just multiply them together. What's 5 times a? 5a. So that is your denominator. I am subtracting these two fractions. So to make life easy, what am I going to do? Plus minus. Whenever you change it to a plus, you also have to change the next number. So make sure you do plus minus. Alright, your first fraction here, 4/5. I have the 5 for my new denominator. What am I missing?
1.
I already have the 5. I'm missing the a. So what I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And so 4 times a, you get 4a on top. And then if you look at your second fraction, 4 divided by a, I'm missing the 5. So we have negative 4 times 5, which gives us negative 20. If you guys forget to change your minus to a plus and then do the opposite sign, you may write positive 20 there, which is why I always change it. All right, so if we rewrite this, we have a squared is divided by 4a minus 20 divided by 5a. Oh wait, I made a mistake. Look at this 4a minus 20. Can I simplify that numerator anymore? Yeah, I can, right? 4a minus 20 has a GCF of what?
4.
Of 4. So if I divide both pieces, both terms by 4, what are we left with?
Minus.
A minus 5. And I think that's part of one of the hard parts of this lesson is trying to simplify your numerator as best you can. And I mean, even I forgot to do it until I rewrote it. So we should have divided by 4 times a minus 5. This a squared should really be over what? There's nothing underneath it, but I can make it over 1. So, and when I go to solve it, I keep my first fraction the same. I change my sign to multiplication, and I flip my last fraction. And I actually cannot cancel anything out here. So we're left with what's a squared times 5a. Well, the 5 stays. What's a to the first times a to the second? Think about it, last unit. What'd you say? Yep. A to the third. Those are our exponent rules. When you're multiplying the same base, you add your exponent. And on the bottom, I'm left with 4 times a minus 5. In this case, it really didn't hurt or help if you simplified the top. So if you would have forgot that, you would have been fine. But sometimes if you don't simplify, then you miss out on where to cancel out. All right, so I want you guys to do the last 2. I'll get you started on your LCD at least. Here is my division symbol. Actually, no, I'm gonna do this one with you. You do the last one by yourself. All right, my LCD. Well, let's see here. My first fraction, my denominator is x. My second fraction, the denominator is y. If we multiply those together, what do we get? Just xy. So that is my new denominator. It's my least common denominator. All right, let's take a look at the top fraction. My first one is 1 divided by x. I have the x, I don't have the y, right? So let's multiply the bottom and the top by y. So 1 times y is what? Just 1y. You don't have to write the 1. You can just write y if you'd like. Second fraction is 1 divided by y. Tongue twister. All right, and I'm going to divide or multiply by x. So I'm left with 1x. So on top you should have y plus x divided by x y. There's nothing else to do with that second fraction. It just says x. So let's just leave it like that. If we rewrite it, we'll have y plus x divided by xy divided by x. What'd you say, Jeffrey?
Over 1.
Over 1, good. We don't just leave it as x, we have to put it over 1. So now, when I'm getting ready to keep, change, flip, I'm going to have y plus x divided by xy times 1 over x. Don't be confused here. This is basically like in a factor because of that plus sign. I cannot cancel out my x and my x on top and bottom. Alright, so on top, I'm left with y plus x, or x plus y, doesn't matter how you write it, and then over xy. And this is your answer. I know it looks weird because there's no numbers, but that would be our answer. Now this last problem I want you to do on your own, but I will get you started with your LCD. And you have your top fraction, which is 1 plus 2 over x. Your bottom fraction is 2 plus 3 divided by 2x. If I were you, before you even get started, put my 1 and my 2 over 1. Make it a fraction. So when you go to do your LCD for your top fraction, you have 1 and you have x. What's your LCD going to be? 1x, or you can just write x. On the bottom, your LCD is going to be 1 or 2 times x. What do you get? No, they're all separate, right? 2 times 1 times x gives me 2x. So that's going to be my denominator. Alright, take 5 minutes to do this problem. Then we'll go over it quick. Let's finish up. Alright, so I'm going to write this. Let me know if you have anything different. The first fraction was missing an x, so I multiplied the bottom and top by 1x, we just got x. The second fraction, nothing changed, so I just have plus 2. On the bottom, I was missing 2x, so that left me with 4x. When I multiplied 2x times 2, nothing changed with the 4x, gives me for my new denominator. So my plus 3 stays the same. For the sake of time, I am going to skip the rewriting part and get right to my keep, change, flip. Excuse me. Thank you. I keep my first fraction, I change my sign, and I flip my second. So 2x goes on top, 4x plus 3 is on the bottom. Alright, I see that I can cancel out my x because they're just being multiplied. That's really all I can cancel out. So I'm left with 2 times x plus 2 over 4x plus 3. Yes. That was your answer. Alright, your homework is homework. What are we on now? F? Alright, so go ahead and do that. Make sure that you are asking questions if you need to. You may go ahead and pack up.